Hey there everybody, it's Betsy from Story Drawing Skills, and I saw this video about you should make a webcomic by Super Death Show, and I was convinced that I needed to make a webcomic. So I'm going to make one, 100 panels of it from scratch in 6 months, and at the time this video is posted, there are 88 days left and 89 panels left to go. In this episode, I'm going to be drawing 6 panels and showing you that I'm going live on Tapas. Tapas, if you haven't heard of it, used to be Tapastic, and it's kind of like Smack Jeeves, or it used to be Drunk Duck, but I think they took the drunk out of there because they were aware that it was kind of shedding a negative light on their website. But anyway, it's a website just for hosting comics, so I thought I would put it there because I knew they had a vertical format. I wasn't entirely sure if Smack Jeeves has a vertical format or not, so I'll have to look into that. Anyway, had to thumbnail out what's going to happen next. I know Clarice needs to do some water magic of some kind to wash away all of these little stone critters, because that's what I said would happen in earlier panels. So I started out with this profile shot of just her face and was not loving her nose, so I decided to get some help from Sarah Bareilles, who has an awesome nose. Love it. There we go. And I could feel myself, though, straying off again into being too realistic. I need to look back at my previous art a little more and try to stay true to the style I've chosen and not just draw whatever I feel like drawing at any given moment. Then I scrapped that profile shot because when I looked at the previous panel where they're both just standing there, I thought it was too abrupt of a change to just go to Clarice's face and do such a super close-up. So I thought I needed one more panel with Kes in there kind of backing up or getting out of the way visually so that it would just be so much smoother seeing that, okay, Kes is getting out of the way, so Cora's already out of the way, so we must have to focus on Clarice right now. And then you'd be, you know, perfectly fine just following what Clarice is doing for the next couple of panels. Figuring out what her hands should be doing. Like, what do your hands do when you're casting magic? I don't know, so I just try things. I went for the splayed fingers sort of poses there, and had to move my panels around because of it. Thought I'd show her fingertips in the second one, and then just the jewel in the third, to make them at least a little bit different from one another. And then doodled in all kinds of wateriness. I wanted to see how it would connect with the rest of it, though, so I went ahead and made my canvas double the size. Unfortunately, I can't figure out if you can tell Fire Alpaca that your comic page, or your canvas, is 2 comic pages, one on top of the other, because when you ask it to show the comic guidelines, it just plops it right in the middle, and you cannot move them, you cannot change them, you cannot do anything. At least I don't know how to, so eventually I just gave up and turned them off, and just went with my gut as to if my panels were inside the guidelines or not. So moving things around there and getting that all set up, and then went in for some more detailed drawing, my second pass. I thought this was going to go straight to inks, like I thought these were going to be my final lines, but the undersketch was just too loose, and I ended up having to do another pass after this, so a lot of this is not going to be the final. I was getting a little too skewed there with her figure, so I flipped it just to make sure that she was symmetrical and standing upright and not leaning weirdly to one side, and had to straighten up just her posture and everything before I flipped her back. And then drew in Kes, getting slightly annoyed that she was almost smacked in the face, and she'll probably say something to that effect at the end. With her hands, I didn't notice that I drew this hand huge, like just super huge, and then the other one is pretty tiny in comparison. And that's around the time that I figured, you know what, I'm just going to do another ink layer after this. So let's just figure out how this stuff works, because I really didn't even know, where is this swooshy stuff coming from? Like, is this her water language? Like, is this her saying stuff? Or is it coming from the stone? Is it coming from her hands? Like, I don't know where this watery, smoky stuff is coming from. So at first I had it coming from her mouth. and it looked a little weird. I wasn't sure about it, so I decided to leave it, go change my music, and then come back and do a more refined inked layer. So coming back and again drawing too many wrinkles. I gotta quit drawing too many wrinkles or too many hairs or just too realistic of shapes. I know some comics do that, and that's fine, but I really wanted to try to keep this comic in the same art style as much as possible in regards to like simplicity and clarity and the level of detail. I wanted it all to be more animated looking. Like maybe it could have come from a cartoon, but all that went out the window when I got to her hands, because then I was just like, ooh, pretty hands, I can draw, and got distracted by shiny objects, so to speak. Finally figured out that that one hand was too large and shrunk it down a little bit. I couldn't shrink it down too much because then the fingers would get oddly thin, so and I'd have to redraw it again, and I didn't want to redraw it again. So I just did that and figured it was enough. And I wanted to try to get her stone the same shape in all of these panels, so I went ahead and did the awesome digital thing of copy and paste to get kind of the same shape going. Also finally decided to use some layers for her hair so that I wouldn't have to be so careful erasing in between her fingers and stuff. Another close-up of her jewel here. I wasn't sure what to do with her fingers, if they would be rotated, are they in the same pose, and I finally gave up and decided to leave them out altogether. Kind of regret it a little bit because having her fingertips there was a nice, differentiating element from that panel to the next panel of her brooch, and now they just kind of look the same, like it's just her brooch and her brooch again. I also thought that it was a little bit abrupt to go from the brooch to her eyes, just in a sudden jump, so I decided to put one more panel of her eyes closed, and it also, upped my panel count, so woohoo! And then kind of sets up a little bit of expectation that she's just going to open her eyes and her eyes would be normal, and then, surprise, they're not. So then I moved it down there so that you'd have to scroll down to see the next panel. At least I thought I was going to go that way, and then I decided not to, because in the spell casting, I only get one big reveal, like one big moment, and I thought instead of it being her eyes, I should probably save the big moment of her actually casting this like flood, out, or this flood magic out into the world. So don't waste it on the eyes, right? Then I had to go in and draw all of this magic. I accidentally left my screen recorder up there so you can see how many minutes it's taking me to do this. Maybe I should do that more often so you guys can see how long this takes me. Or I can just tell you. I do this in segments. Obviously, I draw for anywhere from 30 minutes to 60 minutes at a time, because any longer than that and my computer has a hard time converting the footage. So I know that these 6 panels took me 4 hours. Everything you are going to see all the way to the finished product took a little over 4 hours to do. And when I was drawing it, it seemed like it took so much longer. But then when I saw the amount of footage I had, I go, oh, look at that, it only took 4 hours. Of course, some of these panels were super easy. I mean, an oval, come on now. Shouldn't take me that long to draw an oval. I was having a hard time with the smoke over here because it was looking too stripy, or it was looking, especially right here where it covers her face, I was having a problem where it kept looking like a certain toothpaste logo, and I was trying to avoid that as much as possible. And then I learned from last time that starting with her skin color for the flats wasn't really that efficient because she has so little skin showing, so I started with her clothing color instead, and then filled in the other colors as needed. This is all on one layer so that I can just switch between colors really quickly, and I don't have to worry about being on the correct layer, because I have drawn colors on the wrong layer so many times that I eventually just flatten them anyway. So I thought, let's just start with it flat and go ahead and do it. So, did that first panel, and then moving down to her brooch panel, filling it in with the cranberry, and then on the last one I thought the most color was probably the amber color of the stone, so then I started with that color and filled in the rest. And then for these two, just real simple of her skin color and her hair color. I wasn't quite sure what to do with her eyes yet. Are they going to be white? Are they going to be blue? Are they going to be amber stone? I don't know. So you just leave it until you're done with all the other stuff. Again, starting with the cranberry and then adding the accent colors as I go. And I got smarter about not having to worry too much about staining the lines if another color was going to go over it, like on her tiara right there. I was real sloppy because I knew that both her hair color and her skin color would cover it up anyway. And then over to Cass, who does show a little bit more skin. I went ahead and started with her skin colors and then did her hair and clothing and such until all of her flat colors were put in too. I forgot to put the rest of her cloak in the back though, so I added some brown. And then time to color all of this watery, smoky stuff. I just started with a random color because I had no idea what color this was going to be, and just went along my merry way, outlining it and filling it as I went. If there is another faster way to do this, I don't know what it is, so I am just going to do it the way I know how, even if it's tedious. That's what the music's for. I couldn't get rid of the panel lines yet because in Fire Alpaca the panel lines are paths and the rest are pixels, so you can't erase part of a path. So I'll have to do that in Photoshop when I finish up. If you're not aware, Fire Alpaca is a free program, so that's cool, and my computer runs it a lot faster than Photoshop, so that is also cool, and that's basically why I use it for the drawing portion of my comic. Also because it has the awesome vector panel feature, which I find really helpful and useful and quick to do. So there we go, all the flats are in. I think her eyes are going to be blue. And then when I tried to put in the background colors, I couldn't figure out how to do it in Fire Alpaca, so I'm like, well, forget this then. Let's just move over to Photoshop, since I know I'm going to go to Photoshop anyway, and put the background colors in there, and then start cleaning up the panel lines and add in the very generic mountainy background right there. Do Kess's magic ears. And then I added the same layer style to the watery smoky magic, and all of a sudden it looked awesome. I was like, whoa, hey, this is looking pretty good. I was not convinced up until this point that this watery smoky stuff was working. Since this is my first time doing it, I did not know what to do with it. The color gradient, splotches. Should it really look like water, or should it be more like shimmery and sparkly like magic? Like I do not know. And the same thing with her eyes. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do yet, so I just kept going with the things that I did know I had to do, like shading, and just went back to the comfort of routine when I wasn't sure what to do next. The lighting was going to get a little tricky though, because if this magic glows, then I might have to deal with a secondary light source, which is a pain if anyone has done it before. It's really annoying to have to figure out, okay, well, the light's coming this way, but there's another light coming that way, so the shadow is going to be like something in the middle, I don't know. And in the end, I kind of decided to have it that the magic doesn't actually cast light. Even though it's glowy, I'm not going to make it a secondary light source because, as I previously whined about, secondary light sources are hard to do, and it would take so much time for me to render it, and time is the one thing I do not have. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as the single light source. Forgot that her hair would show in that panel, and I was so happy because now it finally has a different element than the one after it. I have one of my teachers who always said, don't be afraid of the dark. So I went ahead and darkened in everything except the bridge of her nose in an attempt to get her eyes to pop out even more because, you know, glowing stuff works best in the dark, right? And then I thought I should add some more shading detail to her jewel from now on. So I'm adding just a couple little shadows and stuff, and wasn't sure if I wanted like the ocean to be in her brooch or if it would just turn blue. Should I make this like water? Should I just add glowing effects? So I ended up just adding some glowing effects and left it at that. And then a speech balloon so that Kess can say something about Clarice almost smacking her in the face. I thought that my font was too big at first, but it turned out that it was fine. This is the font size that it's supposed to be, even though it's huge. So I ended up having her say, hey, my face was there, as Clarice is lifting her arms. And for her magic casting, wasn't sure if I should do some trippy font or, you know, special words, different language. So I just kind of left it at that. So the first hurdle when I went to upload my comic to Tapas is that I had to pick a title. Oh my gosh. So I thought I'd do Tria, but that turns out to be a hair removal system. So then I tried Tyranima, like my basic themes were 3 because there's 3 types of magic. Balance and, you know, magic, sorcerer, harmony, like just I threw out words and tried to see what they were in Latin, since Latin has a strong connection to a lot of magic spells. And just went through trying to find words, and then I'd do a Google search real quick just to make sure that whatever word that I thought I made up wasn't actually, you know, trademarked or a hair removal system or something like that. I went over to a fantasy title generator even. I was so desperate. And even though I didn't like any of them that came up, they did come up with the word report. And I thought, oh, reporting is one of the things that's in my story. So I'm going to call it like the magic report, and whatever their magic is called, that's what I'll put in there. So at first I thought I was going to call it the Tria report, even though Tria, like I said, is a hair removal system. I'll just, you know, go with it. So I filled out only the required information because I wanted to get this up just as soon as possible. No excuses, no delays. And I had to resize my images down to what Tapas would accept, which is 940 pixels wide. So I went ahead and changed all my pages to 940 wide and tried to upload them. But when I was previewing them, they looked very, very large. And so I changed them. You can see it's like, oops. I put in the wrong files first. Then I went ahead and did the 940 pixels wide. And when I previewed it, it looked really big. It was like really in my face. And I know some people are going to read it on their phone, but at the same time, I just felt like it was really big. So I went back and changed it to 800 pixels wide, which is what I'm used to on like DeviantArt and other sites. I think Tumblr too has only an 800 wide pixel range. So I went ahead and did that. Re-uploaded them. Apparently you cannot reorder pages once you've uploaded them to Tapas. They will just show in the same order that you uploaded them, so you have to upload them in order. I was trying to figure out by someone else's comic, like how big is this? But of course Tapas won't let you right click and save the image because then you might steal somebody's art, and that's not cool. So I was just trying to figure it out by cropping it in Photoshop, but ended up just doing it at 800. So anyway, yes, now it is live on Tapas. You can read the comic over there, the first 11 panels. And until next time, guys, happy drawing!